Transparency is important. We're days away. We have no language to look at. I am not speaking as a member of the minority party. I am speaking as a concerned citizen who wants to know what's getting discussed, to see in the discussions and have input. It's impossible to have input if there is this short of notice. This would not be legally acceptable at a municipality.
That's State Senator Lee Alorando, Republican from Dixon, former Dixon mayor, who he spoke about a shell bill that was being pushed through the chamber last night in the Senate in order to get the budget vehicle. Yeah, what are these terms and how is this happening? Are you going to be able to see the budget before they pass it, before Saturday's midnight deadline? It is Illinois in Focus deadline, Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm a little tired, all right? We were there pretty late last night and just kicking around in my head, not able to get a solid night's sleep, but that is just what comes with this week and the territory of being a Statehouse reporter on the ground. And by the way, mad props to Blue Room Stream. They are an incredible asset at the Capitol. I work with them daily. Lisa, Paul, we've got an awesome crew there. Tony just retired and set us up for success. So it's been incredible. But a lot of what you see here on Illinois in Focus with the Center Square is from Blue Room Stream, and they just do incredible work. But anyways, it's long days, and today we're at the Statehouse. Today's Friday, but they're also scheduled in Saturday. How's it going to play out? We don't know what the budget looks like yet. We're going to get some details dropped on us this morning, then they'll have some committees, and then all of a sudden they may have a vote late tonight, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and then they'll wait until midnight, kick it over to the next change. So there's some weird things that are going to be happening. I don't know if tonight is going to be after Saturday morning when they call it and they get the budget passed, or if they're going to go all the way into Saturday evening. So be sure to stay up to date at thecentersquare.com over the weekend, okay? But yesterday, it started off in the House with a resolution. This is from State Representative Nicole Grassi, and it was a resolution to blast the Trump administration over its budget's handling.
And so today I call on the United States Senate to denounce the Trump health care cuts bill. Many will remember Trump promised the American people that Medicaid would not be touched. But here we are, watching $880 billion in slashes to Medicaid to make room for $4.5 trillion in tax breaks for the wealthiest few. What amounts to a Trump family and friends fund.
So Grassi goes on to talk about the aspects of her resolution. And again, this is just a resolution saying that we urge, Congress people to oppose the Trump administration's cuts to Medicaid or other social services that allow Democrats to get up on the floor and blast the Trump administration. Republican State Representative Patrick Windhorst, again, this is just how the day started yesterday, all right? State Representative Patrick Windhorst takes to the floor, and he's pointing out what he says is hypocrisy from Illinois Statehouse Democrats, critical of the Republicans in Congress moving through a bill to fund government.
The majority party is complaining that congressional Republicans slammed a bill through the House of Representatives in the middle of the night. Are you serious right now? We passed our budget last year, I think we all remember, at 4:30 in the morning. That's line one. Let's go line two. President Donald Trump brazenly lied to the American people, stating he would not cut Medicaid while actually lobbying behind closed doors to pass the bill. Behind closed doors? Where's this budget being negotiated right now? Behind closed doors. President Trump brazenly lied. Where was the governor at when it comes to legislative maps and his promise? Did maybe he not tell the truth? Listen, let's get serious about the business of state of Illinois and not be passing these partisan, crazy resolutions that demonstrate, unfortunately, the hypocrisy of the majority party.
So Windhorst reading some of the lines of the resolution and just beside himself. Having watched the Republican floor leader for every bill that he gets up, and he asks questions, very calm, even keeled, but hear him raise his voice in that fashion. That's how the day started yesterday. And again, all throughout the day, no details on what the budget's going to be. Are there going to be tax increases? There was plenty of conversation about community colleges, conversations about higher ed funding. They had a almost 4-hour hearing on higher ed funding. Then they had an even almost as long meeting about transit consolidation. Go to thecentersquare.com. You'll be able to see that story and others about some of the action yesterday. But then throughout the day, things started coming together bit by bit. Republicans were critical of the budget process and where we were at. But then on the Senate floor, you had State Senator and the Senate President, Don Harmon, say, hey, we got this bill. We got to get over to the House. Here's what it is.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, earlier today we received from the House a House bill with an appropriations title, a candidate for use in a budget for the end of the session here. We are reciprocating today by sending an appropriation title back to the House, and we'll negotiate with the House on passage of a final budget. So this is a vehicle bill. There is no content, and I'd ask members who are able to support the bill going over to the House.
So again, Harmon announcing that he's got a bill. It's an empty bill. There's nothing in it. A shell bill. We've talked about shell bills before. And this is going to be the vehicle, the bill that's going to be used to gut and replace, put the budget in, have it in the House to pass, and then the Senate just has to concur. Again, this is all expected to happen over the next 24 hours or so. And it's going to be a pretty late night, I think. And this is just my prognostication having followed this. Are they going to stick around all day Saturday, or are they going to just stick around into the wee hours of the morning after midnight to get stuff done and then call it a day? We'll see. But the shell bill process now on its way to get the budget done. But shell bills aren't only used for the budget. We've seen shell bills before, and yesterday on the House floor, Democrats passed the medical aid in dying bill that would essentially allow for an individual to, if they have chronic condition and given a bad prognosis, they could request to have a doctor assist in their suicide. I'm not going to air much of the floor speech. It's difficult to hear. There's no question, because they had a slew of different legislators sharing very personal stories. But here's what happened in committee the day before. This is State Representative Robin Gable talking about her bill, which a medical aid in dying law is being put into, a bill about food prep sanitation, a shell bill, right? That they're gutting and replacing with a medical aid in dying bill. Here's Robin Gable from committee earlier this week.
Medical aid in dying is a trusted and time-tested medical practice that is part of the full spectrum of end-of-life care options, including hospice and palliative care. Deb's law would allow terminally ill, mentally capable adults with the prognosis of 6 months or less to live to request from their doctor a prescription for medication that they can decide to self-ingest to die peacefully in their sleep.
Now, a medical doctor, an emergency room physician who's also a state representative, Bill Howder. He is a Republican from Morton. He, in committee, raised several concerns about this. Number one, as a doctor, he feels it goes against his Hippocratic oath. Number two, this shell bill process, it's being put into a bill that was titled Food Preparation Sanitation or something like that, but that has nothing to do with medically assisted suicide.
And it was mentioned a little bit in testimony, but when you have a process where fundamentally changing the practice of medicine, and we're putting inside of a shell bill with little chance for really important stakeholders, I know I have many colleagues who are so confused by this process.
Howder also talks about, again, the thing that doctors are there to do
for the whole house of medicine. But I do think I can confidently speak for a significant majority of the House of Medicine, in that this topic really violates and is incompatible with our oath, our sacred and ancient oath, and what we've been taught.
And again, that's from the committee. I'm not going to air the floor speeches. Again, it's just kind of tough to hear, and there was a lot of it. They debated it on the floor for about an hour. But regardless of the opponents, Democrats approved the medical aid in dying law through a shell bill. Now, I think that still has to go to the Senate. But again, they've got until May 31st to get a whole bunch of stuff done. But back to Senate President Don Harmon, right? So we see how shell bills kind of happen now. Again, say, hypothetically, the House has a bill. They replace the with the. They pass that empty bill over to the Senate. The Senate then reads it 3 times. And they can then replace everything in it at last minute, send it over to the House, which the House would then just have to concur on it. And then it would essentially kind of skip some steps of sorts. This has been challenged in the courts, and it hasn't really gotten traction with the Illinois Supreme Court. I'll have to go and do some dives into all of whatever precedent was set in those challenges. I know part of the recent state-level gun ban challenges, they tried tackling that in some of their cases, because shell bills happen when you have controversial legislation as well. It's not just the medical aid in dying. We had the gun ban in 2023. You had the Safety Act and the Pretrial Fairness Act in 2021, and I'm sure we can go and find plenty of other instances of this happening over and over again. But it's a regular perennial thing every year for the budgets. We wait until last minute to actually see the details of the budget, and they're put into a shell bill that allows it to rapidly get across the finish line, even though they've had 5 months being in spring session. Here is, again, Senate President Don Harmon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, earlier today we received from the House a House bill with an appropriations title, a candidate for use in a budget for the end of the session here. We are reciprocating today by sending an appropriation title back to the House, and we'll negotiate with the House on passage of a final budget. So this is a vehicle bill. There is no content, and I'd ask members who are able to support the bill going over to the House.
Is there any discussion? Senator Rose,
brings
for what
that up.
purpose?
You've got some people who wanted to speak on it briefly, and then you have State Senator Lee Alorando from Dixon say that he's a freshman, he's a Republican, and he's not necessarily speaking as an elected official. He's speaking about a concerned citizen that just wants transparency.
Sorry for shocking my colleagues over here, but as a freshman, I just wanted to offer a real quick statement that transparency has always been very important to me. Coming out of where I came out of, I've been championing it for a long time. I'd note that the governor's proposal has been known for months, and so I just want to offer a little tidbit. I know it's probably not going to be well received, but for a body, sometimes somebody's brand new to it can offer a new lens. Transparency is important. We're days away. We have no language to look at. I am not speaking as a member of the minority party. I am speaking as a concerned citizen who wants to know what's getting discussed, to see in the discussions and have input. It's impossible to have input if there is this short of notice. This would not be legally acceptable at a municipality. And so my critique is, going forward, we have to find a way where transparency is, again, part of the process. That is not a criticism of this General Assembly. That is a criticism of the entire process going back years, decades, in a bipartisan manner. Thank you for graciously allowing this poor freshman his input.
So again, we're seeing this play out in real time here as we cover this kind of play-by-play with Illinois in Focus Daily, right? May 31st, tomorrow, Saturday, is the deadline for them to pass a budget, and they pass a shell bill for the budget with nothing in it, and we don't even know what it is. I understand there may be some, things that they need to hammer out last minute, and that could come in an amendment or something to that effect, and likely there will be. another amendment, maybe 2 or 3 more that'll be filed as they try to shore things up. But there's a lot going on in that budget, including, being the largest spending plan in state history. You've also got the $770 million fiscal cliff that mass transit's going to hit. Go to thecentersquare.com and you can see how that's going to be playing out here. Kevin Bessler writing, mass transit reform legislation revealed, but funding stream finds pushback. State Senator Ron Villi-Ballum, he's called for reforms. He filed an amendment to a bill, and here's a bit of that conversation back and forth.
And focus on is how are we going to manage, operate it going forward? What are the governance changes? And here's why that's important. If that doesn't sound important, here's why it's important. People should be able to get on a bus, a train, a transit of any sort, and not have to worry about which ticket they have and the transfers that they may need to make, and think about what the services are that RTA or that CTA are providing. They should just be able to get on and go where they want to go. And that has not been happening with the governance that we've had up to now. So I think organizing that governance properly so the investments are made across the system where they are needed most. And we're not favoring one thing over another, where what we really need is to uplift the entire system, make it safe for everybody to ride, get to work, go to school, get home safely. Hyper important to me that we're doing that, because you can't put money into something that doesn't guarantee that at the start.
We are doing this for the riders throughout our state that utilize the services provided by 54 public transit agencies in downstate Illinois, to make sure that that system is able to be funded, but that system also works. And that's why this package together with reforms and funding is the approach that the Senate is taking. We know that if we don't do this, it's been laid out, 40% cuts to service. More than 3,000 public transit workers will get pink slips in the mail. And that, we believe, is not an option.
Tollway revenue are legally designed for tollway-related projects. Reallocating these funds would violate bond covenants, jeopardizing investor confidence and inviting legal challenges. This proposal is inequitable, as suburban drivers would effectively subsidize urban transit systems, such as the CTA, in addition to tolls they already pay. It is unreasonable to expect public support for future toll increases, diverting current revenue for unrelated purposes. We advocate for comprehensive statewide transportation strategies focused on genuine investment rather than mere governance rearrangement. This critique of utilizing
a lot of the questions here about $750 million, they want reforms to consolidate. Questions about whether or not some of the suburban areas are going to have a say on boards when it's consolidated. But you also have how this is going to be funded, right? Not just the consolidation, but also taking care of that $760 million fiscal cliff. More from the operating engineers here about what they're seeing in these proposals.
It can be summarized as robbing Peter to pay Paul. These are concerns that a tollway surcharge could deter drivers, ultimately diminishing funding for both roads and transit infrastructure. This surcharge would jeopardize public support for long-term infrastructure initiatives, such as the 10-year Move Illinois capital program. We endorse increased investment in public transit to mitigate the impending fiscal cliff. Additionally, we oppose proposals that threaten the integrity of the toll system without offering a permanent solution.
So that's just some of the stuff you'll see as you follow along with us throughout the day at thecentersquare.com. So back to the budget, right? That's a small little part of what could be in the budget. $740 million fiscal cliff being plugged with more taxes like a toll surcharge, and as the gentleman said there, that could be essentially suburbanites who don't use mass transit subsidizing mass transit. You also have the possibility of there being a new revenue stream for rideshare like Uber. There could be a tax on that to pay for mass transit. So are those the types of tax increases that we're going to see in the budget? That's a great question. Governor Pritzker, just to reiterate what we talked about yesterday, he says that he won't sign a budget that has broad tax increases on working families.
No, I've been opposed to any taxes that are broad-based or that would affect working families.
State Senator Andrew Chesney says that that doesn't feel genuine coming from Pritzker.
Well,
Well, is that the same governor that said he was not going to support a gerrymandered map? I think that's the same governor. So I think the governor has a political interest in trying to fight for the taxpayers because his interest is in presidential politics, not state politics.
And yesterday, Republicans critical of the governor's comments from earlier this week, but they also talked about, listen, there's a significant issue with the state's finances. We don't have transparency when it comes to the budgets. They even said that the budget that's going to be presented at some point is going to be fake anyways. They've said there's going to be gimmicks, possible tax increases, and that Pritzker isn't worried about Illinois. He's now focusing on running for the White House. But we have other things that are going to be impacting Illinois. All right, so we've been talking $54 billion in state funds. That's just part of the overall tax dollars coming to the state of Illinois. I think we're expecting like $75 billion from the federal government to take the total taxpayer cost for running the state of Illinois to $130 billion. So just always keep that in mind. We'll hear $54 billion as the state side of taxpayer money, but you've also got federal dollars pouring in. Or do you? What's the Trump administration going to do? They've already announced they're going to take efforts to try to stop tax dollars from going to just general medical subsidies for non-citizens in the country. Pritzker says that and a whole bunch of other what they call cuts are a problem for the country.
Donald Trump, frankly, doesn't give a darn about working people, about folks who are vulnerable in our society, and only wants to give a massive tax cut to the wealthiest people in the country.
So here we are again with the national politics coming in, but this is obviously a practical question because Trump could withhold federal dollars for a whole host of things, from men and women's sports policies to DEI policies to the non-citizen migrant policies and beyond. Republican State Representative Adam Niemer, he said that the Trump administration should withhold funding from Illinois.
You think Trump's going to sit there and say, well, yeah, you guys keep invading girls' safe spaces and running all these boys in these track meets and keep pushing this woke radical agenda, keep putting DEI in every bill that we see, and also support illegal immigrants over the citizens of this great state of Illinois? Of course, if I'm him, I'm going to cut that federal funding, and he should cut that funding.
Well, back at it. We'll see what the budget looks like with all the shell bills that are floating around out there and what the vehicles are to get a measure across the finish line to spend your tax dollars. Are you going to stay up late tonight to see what that looks like and call your legislator and make sure that they know what's going on and how you feel about the budget, or are you going to have time to even do that? Listen. One of my colleagues raises every year that in Illinois, municipalities are supposed to pass they're supposed to post publicly the budget they plan on passing for 30 days for public review. That's not happening when it comes to the Statehouse. So let that float there. All right, it is Bishop with you here with Illinois in Focus Daily. It's gonna be a long night.